Welcome to this CPD webinar and thank you for your interest in this session. I'm Hayley Lorimer, Director of Membership at the Federation of Master Builders, FMB, and this session is the result of a collaboration between the Chartered Institute of Building, CIOB, and FMB. And our two organisations have a lot in common, particularly our focus on promoting high standards in the building industry. And FMB in particular focuses on representing the interests of SME contractors in the building industry. And we obviously have a lot of overlap there and some joint members as well, some building contractors who are members of both of our organisations. Today, we're going to be talking about the retrofit market and opening that up for SME building contractors. We have three speakers with us today. So Brian Berry, Chief Executive of the FMB, who has spent many years looking into the retrofit market on behalf of our members and who's going to give us an overview. David Barnes from the Policy and Public Affairs team at the CIOB will also give a policy viewpoint on the retrofit as well. And then we'll hand over to Colin Calder, who's the CEO of Digital Buildings, who've developed a scheme to help consumers through what really can be a maze in looking at having retrofit done on your home. And so Colin's going to talk us through a scheme that helps consumers with that, but also creates opportunities for SME contractors in the retrofit market as well. And they're an FMB Associate Member too. Because this is a recorded session, we won't be able to take questions from anyone in the audience, obviously, as we go through, but we will share the speaker's contact details with you so that if you have any follow-up questions that you'd really like to ask, you'll be able to get in touch that way with our speakers. So without further ado, I am now going to hand over to our first speaker, who is Brian Berry. Thank you, Brian.
Hayley, thank you very much. And can I just say, I really welcome this opportunity for the FMB to be working with the CIOB on this topic, as we do share a lot of common interests in terms of policies in the built environment. So I'm just going to share my presentation, which hopefully will pop up soon. Great. Yeah. So as Hayley mentioned, we're going to focus on the retrofit market and how we open it up. So for those who are probably a little bit less familiar, the Federation of Master Builders is a trade body for small and micro building companies across the UK. We were set up in 1941, which is quite an unusual time, but it was because of the London Blitz, and small builders in London weren't able to secure the contracts to do the repairs to the bomb damage, that the FMB was first established. And from those humble origins in 1941, we are now UK-wide with nearly 7,000 member companies across the UK. Most of our members work in the repair, maintenance and improvement sector, although about 10% also are involved in house building. And I think the one thing I'd like to stress is we have over the last decade really focused on raising standards. And so for any building company wanting to join the FMB, we do have a 14-point entry check, which includes an inspection. So this is really important in terms of ensuring we underpin the credibility of being a master builder company. And I should add that actually at a time of skills crisis in this country, 40% of our members do train an apprentice. So retrofit, this is a really big challenge, but also a big opportunity. And we're fortunate in this country to have a very rich and varied housing stock, 29 million homes currently. But one of the issues with our housing stock is that it's very old and it's very energy inefficient, with 39% of our homes built before 1939. And this has a personal cost as well, because 2.5 million households are living in fuel poverty. And we need to address this because 85% of our existing homes will still be in use in the year 2050. So why is retrofit important? Well, the first thing I would like to stress is that the UK does have a legal commitment to deliver net zero by 2050. And given that our homes contribute 17% of carbon emissions, we won't meet that target unless we tackle our existing housing stock. And the good news for building companies is that it is a market that is worth between 3.5 billion and 6.5 billion pounds a year. So there is a fantastic opportunity there for small builders to tap into. Unfortunately, though, the market hasn't taken off as quickly as we would have hoped. So, there are various reasons about why the market is being held back. One of the reasons is we've got a very fragmented industry. It's for small builders who don't need to be licensed or registered. We've got a whole range of companies working across the construction sector. And also there's a lack of clarity about standards. We have got the PAS 2035, but we've also got the Trustmark License Plus. So there is some confusion about what standards are always needed. There's also, for building companies, not a market at the moment to drive training. There isn't, consumers aren't asking for qualifications. And in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a skills gap in the building industry. And critically, 89% of contractors don't hold formal qualifications for pre-1919 work. And for consumers, it's also an equally confusing picture. Many consumers don't know where to go to for independent information or understand the process of retrofit. The government, the previous government, was really pushing changes to our heating system, but not on fabric improvements. Also, consumers are confused about the standard and quality. They are concerned about cowboy builders. We know from an FMB survey that 1/3 of consumers are put off having work done because they don't know who to trust. And for owner occupiers, there are very few financial incentives. To date, there is a grant to remove gas boilers, but there's no actual financial help for fabric improvements. And only 10% of households undertake standalone energy efficiency works. So builders, though, are saying that they're ready, but there is a low demand for retrofit work. 68% of our members told us they are very confident or fairly confident they could answer consumer questions about energy efficiency and low carb technology. But we know from the survey that only 29.5% of our members report that the clients always or often ask about energy efficiency or low carbon. 40% of our members said that clients rarely or never asked about these questions. So that's a problem. Our builders are ready, but there's lack of demand from consumers. So against this background, the industry has been working together in terms of actually trying to open up the retrofit market. During the time of the pandemic, the industry came together under the umbrella of the Construction Leadership Council and developed a national retrofit strategy, a long-term plan that would cover a 20-year period to actually deliver retrofit. And I think the importance of this strategy was actually, rather than looking at things in isolation, it brought together all the main interlocking components. So it was looking at financial incentives, it was looking at actually what's needed to improve training, looking at the standards needed, and also consumer redress. So looking at all the various components that would actually create a robust and viable retrofit market. Now, the government at that time, and we're still waiting, obviously, with the new Labour government to see what the response will be, left it to the industry to actually push forward and to try to open up the retrofit market. And so in response to that, the industry has come together to create a national retrofit hub. And this is focusing very much on enabling the delivery of housing retrofit at scale. It's about sharing best practice and a series of working groups, which in time will be producing more information to help people in the retrofit market, but in the construction sector generally, to understand the opportunities and what they can do in terms of actually stepping into this market. For the FMB's point of view, we have been concerned about cowboy builders. We know this puts consumers off, and that's going to be an issue, I think, for the retrofit market in terms of ensuring consumer confidence. So we have been calling for the licensing of building companies to protect consumers, but also underpin the reputation of our industry. And 3 years ago, there was a private members bill in Parliament calling for the licensing of domestic building companies. The bill was withdrawn because there was no government support, but it's something that we continue to argue for, because I think at a time when higher standards are needed, at a time of post-Grenfell, there is certainly a need to boost standards and credibility within the building industry, and licensing, I would argue, offers that guarantee. So in terms of action and next steps, the industry will need to focus on improved training and accreditation of building companies, and also collaborate and share knowledge about the retrofit market, which is something the National Retrofit Hub is doing, but it'd be good if that was backed by the government as well. Now, we've got the new Labour government that was elected in July. They have said they would like to upgrade 5 million existing homes, which sounds very positive, but we need to know more detail about what that means in practice. And I would suggest to the new government that we do need a long-term approach to retrofit. We should be treating it more like an infrastructure project. And to accompany that, we also need to make sure we've got a long-term skills plan to make sure we've got the installers and builders fully competent to carry out the retrofit work. And Hayley, that is the end of my presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you, Brian. Lots of information in there for everybody. I think now we're handing over to David. Are you ready to share your screen? Thank you.
Yes, hello. Sorry, bear with me one moment whilst I just share my screen. Sorry, bear with me. It's just vanished.
The joys of technology.
Sorry, bear with me. I have to do it the old-fashioned way slightly. Bear with me.
Yep, we can see that now.
That was lucky, so apologies for that. Sorry, yes, nice to see you all. Sorry, I'm David Barnes. I'm the Acting Head of Policy and Public Affairs at the Chartered Institute of Building, and I just wanted to build a little bit upon what Brian said about some of the kind of policy actions that's going on, as well as detail a bit of the work that the CIOB's been involved with to date on retrofit. Again, just a bit of background. Firstly, the Chartered Institute of Building was established in 1834. We offer a range of services, including membership, professional development, qualifications and resources to support individuals and organisations. We have around 50,000 members, individual members worldwide, and 80% of which are based in the UK. Although domestic retrofit is not a natural home for CIOB members, unlike the FMB, it is a significant issue for the industry at large, and a lot of our members hold dual membership of these bodies. And mainly our membership works across the entire width and breadth of the built environment, so site management, construction management, through to building control, as well as heritage roles. People primarily join the CIOB as a mark of professionalism to help win work and commit to CPD in key areas such as ethical standards and building safety, so hence the alignment really with the FMB here. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the wider context around retrofit, and again, some of this is well-trodden ground that I'm sure some of you are aware of, and Brian covered in his presentation. But there is near an exhaustive amount of work that needs to be done to repair and maintain the UK's existing buildings and infrastructure, and there is significantly more needed to reshape the built environment for the future. To take just a few from a long list of ever-present tasks, there's millions of homes that need to be made decent and more energy efficient. Britain's high streets need to be rethought and revamped, and improved measures are needed to curb existing kind of threat from flooding, for example. And furthermore, when you look at a more local level, there's regular surveys of local council estimate the road repair backlog to fix potholes, which blight the lives of drivers and cyclists in England and Wales, is over 12 billion and would take 11 years to complete. So that's RMI on a wider scale, but obviously we're focusing a bit more on domestic policy here, or domestic housing, should I say. But also interestingly, and the COVID-19 pandemic also pointed to the pressing need to repurpose and upgrade the existing building stock as it lies. So just picking a few things out, there's been more flexible working patterns has meant more working from home. The changing nature of shopping habits has had an impact on our high streets, both of which require significant investment in repair, maintenance and improvement work. And I've just listed a few other examples there. Further to this, though, I think RMI should be seen by policymakers as an important driver for numerous social and economic issues that actually face the UK. I mean, primarily, RMI work generates more employment than new build construction, and as an industry, we know the existing built environment is essential to everyone in this nation. So investment can be targeted to the locations and groups of the population with the greatest need. Brian has already spoken about the positive impact that retrofit and RMI can have on hitting climate targets, but there's also other wider issues when it comes into place, such as labour retention and raising productivity. And all of these continue to be major big ticket items for policymakers as we move forward. I think it's worth noting really that successive governments have also often focused on new build rather than retrofit. And a few reasons for this might be because relative to new build, the technical challenges of working on existing buildings and structures are greater. There's uncertainty in the integrity of the structure and components used in the existing construction. Furthermore, unexpected problems are evident at the planning stage, may be revealed later on during the process, and the long-term effect of changes may be unclear. So finding the most efficient and effective way to repurpose an existing building or structure can be far from straightforward. There is also pressure to keep the overall impact of carbon emissions to a minimum. There are many quick wins in the battle to raise energy efficiency standard in existing homes, such as replacing inefficient boilers and ensuring double glazing is fitted, and that's what we've seen. But the big wins come from other improvements that push towards getting all homes to EPC Band C is not so simple. So about 6 million homes in England alone have non-cavity walls, according to the English Housing Survey. And this presents technical problems with retrofitting which practical and cost-effective solutions can and must be found. And I think this is the wider issue really around why you need a national retrofit strategy, so you can bring in different areas, as there's often not a one-size-fits-all approach that can be taken. And while home improvement may be required as a simple job for a builder, it can prove technically difficult with deep potential pitfalls, particularly with work relating to energy efficiency. The fear of failures occurring among homeowners often acts as a barrier inhibiting wider uptake of some of these measures. So the answer really does not lie solely in throwing money at the problem. Good design, planning and execution with stringent oversights are all essential. And the challenge does suggest that undertaking work at scale could reap learning curve efficiencies and reduce reworking. So the highly technical nature of much of the energy efficiency retrofitting element of home improvement work points to the need to create and foster specialist firms employing suitably qualified technicians to do this. I've just also added a few examples really here of the scale of the challenge. I mean, looking at the skills challenge on a regional level, a recent report from Whole Life Consultants on behalf of Central London Forward, the organisation which represents 12 Central London local authorities, estimated that retrofitting every property in the capital with an EPC level C or below would require 148,000 person years of labour. So that's equivalent to the output of 148,000 people working full-time each year. So dependent on the pace of rollout by the end of the decade, a workforce between 19,000 and 28,000 skilled workers would be required to deliver retrofit in central London alone. And Reed Environment have also shared new research which estimates that the rate of retrofit recruitment must triple if the country is to meet the 2050 net zero ambitions that we have. So just talking around the policy environment a little bit as well. I mean, construction, we know in the industry that construction and the wider built environment is very much reliant on policy certainty, and an overarching policy framework such as the national retrofit would hopefully encompass multiple and complementary policies, and that's what would be needed. What we've seen in the past is single issue demand side incentives such as the Green Homes Grant that only tackle part of the problem. I think this is where we need to bring in different elements at different times, as it's not just straightforward about turning a tap on and turning it off. In more recent times, obviously Labour, just as of last month or the month before, won a majority in the 2024 general election, but their manifesto, Our Plan to Change Britain, did not contain any explicit references to retrofit or repair maintenance improvement. However, there is some signs of kind of positivity, as it included things like plans to provide cheaper zero carbon electricity by 2030, further investment in green energy technologies, installing thousands of clean power projects. But importantly, I guess the closest commitment on Retrofit is to deliver a warm homes plan to upgrade energy efficiency of 5 million homes through grants and low interest loans. They also plan to support investment in installation and other home improvements such as solar panels, batteries, and low carbon heating to cut bills. As Brian's mentioned, we still need some further detail on that, and we're yet to be consulted on what those changes might mean. There's also a commitment to ensure homes in the private rented sector meet minimum energy efficiency standards by 2030. And Labour have also stated that they'll work with the private financial sector to provide further finance to accelerate home energy efficiency upgrades and low carbon heating. And this marks a significant reversal following the Conservative government's decision to scrap the minimum energy efficiency standards regulations in September 2023. So that's just a quick snapshot of some of the policy things that's going on. I also just wanted to touch on a few of the bits that CIOB has also been involved in. I mean, firstly, a widely held concern by homeowners and occupiers in the domestic RMI market is that it is unaffordable. It will be carried out by untrained or incompetent tradespeople. As Brian mentioned, a lack of signposting and information about the process of retrofit and too many cowboy builders are part of the issue that's holding back domestic RMI. We carried out some research this year of 2,000 UK adults who own their own home and intend to undertake home improvements in the next 12 months. We found that despite concerns around the cost of living crisis, for example, on their home improvement projects, almost half of respondents did not think having a written contract with their builder or tradesperson was essential. CIOB have said that having a contract means clients, or not having a contract means clients face potential misunderstandings over costs and project delivery, with expensive disputes much more likely to occur, ultimately putting the projects at risk of being derailed. Furthermore, making choices based on personal recommendations was the most popular way of selecting a builder or tradesperson among survey respondents. However, only just under a third of people consider it a priority to check builders' references, their relevant qualifications, or professional accreditation, and something that we think really needs to be done to actually scale up trust in the sector. To assist on this, CIOB have also published a free online resource for homeowners planning home improvement projects, including top tips, templates, and blogs about how to get best results from it. There's a link to this found here on the support for clients and homeowners section. And just on an industry level, CIOB have released a technical information sheet focusing on what retrofit is, the approach to be taken and processes to be followed. It covers some well-trodden ground, but also some new ground, and covers a kind of fabric-first approach to some of this. Lastly, CIOB's Building Conservation Certification Scheme has also expanded its entry requirements to certify individuals working within the retrofit sector. So the scheme applies the same criteria as other similar certifications, but with energy efficiency and sustainability and recognition that climate change must play a part in everyone's life. So just touching on some final thoughts as well. I mean, it's the same thought that I think Brian had as well around Labour's target of 5 million homes to be upgraded presents some significant challenges and opportunities for the sector. But again, we're slightly concerned around the scaling up demand opens up routes for potentially people that do not have the right skills or competence, and furthermore rogue traders to come into the sector. We've seen before where rogue traders can have a huge impact on customer confidence in terms of the retrofit sector. So this is something that we really will need some more detail on. And likewise, clearer detail on how we will make some of these manifesto pledges a reality will be very much key. And I think steering the national retrofit strategy towards those policymakers will be important. Thank you for that. If you have any questions, please contact the policy at crb.org.uk. I will hand back over, though, because I believe Colin is speaking next.
Thank you, David. And I'm just going to share my screen. And also, both David and Brian, I think, have set out very clearly. By the way, I'm Colin Calder, the co-founder and CEO of Digital Buildings. I think both of them have set out very clearly the scale of the opportunity, but also there are a lot of challenges. And so I would like to tell you a little bit about the company my co-founder Catherine Harrison and I set up in 2021, shortly after a number of financial institutions signed up to the Net Zero Banking Alliance obligations. What did that actually mean? Well, when we dug into the announcements, we discovered that over 70% of UK mortgage holders are now subject to the UN NZBA obligations, which means that those lenders within 3 years have to come up with credible plans which are based on robust science-based approach, which takes those homes to net zero by 2050, but they must also set interim targets. And the industry has, as a general rule, have decided on aiming to get properties to an EPC band C by 2035. What does that mean in terms of potential retrofits? It means that lenders need to do about 350,000 retrofits a year if they're going to meet those annual targets. So we set the company up because we saw this as a huge opportunity to not only help lenders understand the scale of the liability they had and what it was going to cost to fix that liability, but also to work with them to develop new loan products which would help bring consumers into this market. And also, as we've understood from what Brian and David have already said, there are many obstacles that need to be overcome, like there need to be financial incentives for consumers to get involved in doing retrofits. We need to build trust. We need to identify safe suppliers who will implement the type of retrofit measures that are needed. So we've designed an end-to-end service platform, which our sister company, RetroGreen, delivers into the market. It's a very simple approach. All we ask consumers to do is enter their address, so first line of address and postcode. From that, we automatically generate 3 different retrofit pathways for their property. So we access multiple external data sources to do that. And each pathway gives the consumer an understanding of the type of measures and costs involved. So one pathway is around getting my home to an EPC band C or better, if you wish. Another pathway is around just replacing the equipment in your home because your boiler is at end of life, and you've heard about all these new technologies like heat pumps and solar. And the third pathway is all about getting your property to the lowest operating cost. So having helped the consumer understand what the costs are associated with that and what the opportunities are and the type of money they might need to borrow from their lender, and they've also secured some indication that that money would be forthcoming from the lender, then we help them go to the next stage, which is to have a full on-site assessment where we send a PAS 2035 assessor who's been on an upskilling course that we've developed with Elmhurst Energy to do what we call a pre-installation survey. And that allows us to collect all the data and information required to do the heat loss calculations, to create detailed plans of the building, so that we can then invite 3 contractors who have joined our Trustmark scheme. So we put them through a pre-vetting process to make sure that they can implement the measures that are required by that consumer. And having been through that vetting process, they will receive the invitation to tender from the consumer through an electronic system in a common format. So armed with all the information, they can now respond to those tender invitations without going to site. And that means that their cost of bidding for this type of work is extremely low, taking away yet another obstacle to helping consumers get best value for money. And then once the works are underway, we provide oversight using PAS 2035 retrofit coordinators, and we also go to site to do a post-installation assessment. So that gives you a sort of brief understanding of the customer journey and that we're there holding the consumer's hand all the way. In terms of the type of loan products that we need, we're working with lenders not only to help them understand the amount of money that is required, and based on a random sample of more than 1,000 properties, we're looking at an average cost of between £30,000 and £40,000 to do a retrofit to bring a property up to an A, B, or C rating. So we are able to model all of that information not only for the lender but for the broker and the consumer. We are able to help the lender create new loan products where the consumer will be rewarded for getting their property to an A, B, or C in the form of a discount on the total mortgage. And the minute you start to add all these benefits together of lower operating costs, greater comfort, higher asset value, and a reduction in the overall mortgage cost, then very quickly we start to create propositions that are attractive to consumers. So how does this work for contractors? As I've mentioned, we are a Trustmark scheme provider. We've worked very closely with the Federation of Master Builders in aligning our onboarding processes with theirs. We are going to launch a preferential rate for FMB members in September, so watch out for that. And we bring retrofit contractors into our scheme, which is run under the Trustmark License Plus arrangements. And the benefits you will receive as a contractor is free lead generation. So you'll receive from us leads that have been driven by consumers talking to the lenders about borrowing money to do retrofits. You will receive the request for proposal, as I explained, with all the information you need to quote without having to go to site. And as a consequence of this, our goal is that you will, over time, receive a rapidly growing and healthy pipeline of opportunities as lenders start to ramp up activity in this space to hit that 350,000 retrofits a year target. For contractors, this obviously means that you're receiving a steady workload of jobs in your area. And the reason we're keen on recruiting the FMB members into our scheme is it provides us national coverage with local builders with good reputations who are trusted and have been delivering good services to their community. And some of these other points I've already covered in terms of the information that we supply. For lenders and landlords, this obviously helps them understand the amount of finances that is going to be needed to undertake the work. We obviously are providing the pre and post verification. So this is really important, going back to those NZBA obligations, where there's independent verification of benefits. And obviously, we're helping them manage their risks. So if we, as a result of a retrofit, improve the EPC rating, there's now evidence from Rightmove and other organizations that the property increases in its asset value, which decreases the loan to value ratio, which for a lender means it reduces the risk of the loan. Finally, for consumers, we're working to make this a financial proposition that works for them. So the minute we start to layer in a discount on the total mortgage, particularly if that discount is more than 0.5%, then the money you need typically for the retrofit effectively is interest-free. And so you suddenly have a proposition that says, well, I would love to have a lower operating bill with more comfort, a property that's worth more money, easier to sell, and I actually end up with a cheaper mortgage. So a very compelling proposition. And the way we've designed the platform and the service is to overcome many of the obstacles that both David and Brian have talked about, where the UK market is structured around single measures, whereas if you're doing a retrofit, you really need to be able to talk to the industry about doing multi-measure changes to your property. If you'd like To learn more about our proposition, please do visit www.digitalbuildings.co.uk. And I'll pass back to you, Hayley. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Colin. We have packed an awful lot of information into 45 minutes there from all of our speakers. As I was listening to us going through those presentations, I picked up on a few common themes that recurred. First of all, the attitudinal theme about trust, lack of trust in our sector, really, and for consumers knowing how to procure the services that they need and knowing what services they might need in the first place, and the policy issues, the lack of long-term thinking and the need for some clarity on where government policy is going to go with that. The money and finance is so important, and we heard a little bit about potential for government grant funding, but then also from Colin about the role of private finance in all of this. And then, of course, the huge skills gap and the challenge there as well, which is massive, but also creates huge opportunities. So I don't know if any of our speakers want to pop their cameras back on and have any final words they'd like to say before we close the CPD session. I can see Brian's clicking his camera back on, and Colin and David. Did you have any final summing up remarks you wanted to make before we close the session?
Well, I was just going to say, Hayley, I think, there's a real synergy of thinking about the retrofit market. I think the industry is really stepping up, and it will take off. So I'm really optimistic about it. It's taken a long time to get there, but it would be really good if the UK government was to back it as well. And so I'm really eager to see what they're going to say about the 5 million homes to be retrofitted, because this is a catalyst that we need to get things really turbocharged. We can't afford to wait. We've got to move on this, because otherwise we're not going to meet our net zero target by 2050.
Any other closing remarks, or shall I close the webinar there? Colin, you're on mute.
To that, I think, lenders now have an obligation to decarbonise their loan books. So they are under pressure to make change happen. We're beginning to see innovation around new loan products that would reward consumers for making their homes more energy efficient. So I'd echo what Brian said. The technology is there, the opportunity is there, the capability is there. We just need a set of government policies that provide a framework in which we can all respond and deliver what the nation needs.
Right. And David, I can see you nodding, so I'm guessing that you're in agreement with everything that's been said.
Yeah, complete agreement. And I think it's also just important to say these kind of collaborations are really important to us nowadays, working with the FMB and the other bodies in the built environment. I think even if sometimes the direction is slightly different around how we get there, we all want to see the same thing in terms of kind of skilled, competent people delivering a lot of this work. And I think this is why there's so much benefit of having that kind of one voice approach to government. Quite often, regularly, we're told we don't know who to speak to when we get questions from the government, but these all work really well as kind of having a straightforward plan to work with, and the National Retrofit Strategy and the Homes Hub has helped do that as well. So thank you very much.
Right. Thank you to all of our speakers. And goodbye.